Riker Blackwood's fingers drummed against the mahogany bar as Seattle's elite circulated through his startup's launch party. 6 years of grinding had led to this moment. Cyphertech was finally making its debut, and investors were circling like sharks. "Mr. Blackwood, the mayor would like a word," his assistant murmured, gesturing toward the entrance. "Tell him 5 minutes." Riker downed his scotch, scanning the crowded venue. That's when he heard it, a haunting melody cutting through the superficial chatter. The rich, resonant notes of a cello pulled him across the room as if by some magnetic force. In the corner, partially hidden by a column, sat a woman with copper hair cascading down her shoulders. Her eyes closed as her bow danced across the strings. The music stopped abruptly when she sensed him watching. Eyes the color of jade met his, unimpressed by his custom Tom Ford suit or the fact that this was his party. "Don't stop on my account," Riker said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. "Your program said background music until 9. It's 9:15. She began packing up her instrument with practiced efficiency. "I'm Riker Blackwood." "I know. You signed my check." She didn't offer her name in return, "which I can't do if I don't know who you are." A reluctant smile tugged at her lips. "Everly Sinclair. You play like you've made a deal with the devil, Everly Sinclair. And you talk like someone who's used to getting his way." She snapped her case shut. "Your mayor's waiting." Riker found himself doing something unprecedented, ignoring an important connection to pursue a woman who clearly wanted nothing to do with him. "Have dinner with me. I don't date clients." "Then consider yourself fired." Her laugh was unexpected and genuine. "That's your solution? To fire me so you can ask me out? Is it working?" The party swirled around them, but for Riker, everything else had faded into background noise. Something about her cut through his carefully constructed facade, making him feel strangely exposed. "No," she finally answered, slinging her cello case over her shoulder. "But you can try again after you meet with the mayor." 3 days later, Riker tracked her down at a small coffee shop in Pike Place Market where she was grading papers. The stack revealed what his background check couldn't. She taught music to middle schoolers while performing nights and weekends. "Stalking is a crime in Washington state," she said without looking up as he sat across from her. "It's not stalking if I brought reinforcements." He placed a paper cup beside her half-empty one. "Triple shot mocha, extra whipped cream." Everly's pen paused. "How did you know my order?" "The barista remembered you." "Apparently, you're a good tipper." She finally looked at him, her guard visibly lowering. "I worked service jobs through college. Never forgot how it feels to be invisible." "You're many things, Everly Sinclair, but invisible isn't one of them." Riker leaned forward. "One dinner. If you're bored, you never have to see me again." That dinner turned into breakfast. The reserved cellist from Boston and the ambitious tech entrepreneur from Aspen discovering they were more alike than different, both driven by perfectionism, both running from something they weren't ready to name. Riker had never met someone who wasn't impressed by his achievements or family name. Everly challenged him, called him on his bullshit, and made him laugh until his stomach hurt. She played Tchaikovsky in his penthouse at sunrise and taught him how to make pancakes without setting off the smoke alarm. 3 months in, Riker found himself canceling a meeting with potential investors because Everly had a performance at a local hospice. Watching her play for patients who might not see another spring, he realized he was falling in love with her. The thought terrified him. "My mother would hate you," he whispered as they walked along the waterfront that evening. Everly raised an eyebrow. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" "The highest. Halston Blackwood has never approved of anyone I've dated." "Have you brought many women home to meet her?" "None." The admission surprised even him. "You'd be the first." Everly stopped walking, turning to face him. "What are we doing, Riker? You're about to become Seattle's newest tech mogul, and I'm a middle school music teacher who plays charity events for extra cash." "We're breaking my patterns," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I've never been happier about anything in my life." That night, in his sleek downtown apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sound, Everly played her cello naked as the sun set, her music wrapping around him like a spell. Afterward, as she slept beside him, Riker stared at the ceiling, trying to ignore the voice in his head that sounded suspiciously like his mother's, warning him that people like them didn't get happy endings. 6 months passed in a blur of late-night conversations, weekend getaways, and Everly slowly moving her things into his apartment. She met his business partners, but not his family. He met her students, but not her parents, who died in a car accident when she was in college. As Cypher Tech grew, so did their relationship, both exhilarating and terrifying in their intensity. The night Riker secured his first major contract, they celebrated on his balcony with champagne and takeout Chinese. To the next tech billionaire, Everly toasted, her eyes reflecting the city lights. To us, Riker countered, suddenly certain that no success would mean anything without her. Neither knew that in 3 months' time, everything would shatter, leaving them both irrevocably changed. Silicon Valley money is the worst, Riker muttered, loosening his tie as he paced the living room. They want control of everything, our algorithm, our data structure, even our damn coffee machine. Everly watched him from the piano bench, where sheets of music lay scattered. Then walk away. You've got other investors interested. Not with pockets that deep. He sank onto the couch, rubbing his temples. This is our chance to scale globally, to beat Griffin Tech to market. Is that what this is about? Beating your old roommate? Everly's fingers trailed across the keys, a gentle counterpoint to his agitation. Riker looked up sharply. Parker Griffin stole my initial code. He's been 1 step ahead of me since Stanford. And now you're letting him dictate your decisions. She stood, moving to sit beside him. The Riker I know wouldn't give up equity just to win some tech bro pissing contest. He laughed despite himself. When did you become such an expert on venture capital? I've been listening to you for the past 8 months. She took his hand, tracing the lines of his palm. You don't need their money. You need someone who believes in your vision. That night, Riker rewrote his pitch deck, focusing on long-term growth rather than immediate market domination. Everly fell asleep on the couch beside him, her copper hair spilling across his lap as he worked until dawn. The next day, he turned down the Silicon Valley offer. 3 weeks later, he secured funding from a Boston-based firm that offered less money but greater autonomy. Cypher Tech's valuation hit 8 figures, with Riker still holding majority ownership. I've been summoned to the Blackwood Fortress, Riker announced one evening, showing Everly the terse email from his mother. Annual family dinner. This year, I'm not going alone. Everly's eyes widened. You're taking me to Aspen? To meet your mother? And my sister? And probably a dozen business associates my mother's trying to impress. He pulled her into his arms. Fair warning, Halston Blackwood is more barracuda than mother. And here I thought you were exaggerating. Everly kissed him, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Should I bring my cello? Nothing says, I'm dating your son, like a box suite. Just bring yourself. That's intimidating enough for Halston. The Blackwood estate sprawled across 5 acres of prime Aspen real estate, all gleaming glass and angular architecture. Halston Blackwood stood in the foyer, her silver hair cut in a severe bob, her handshake firm as she assessed Everly with calculating eyes. So you're the musician, she said, the word tinged with subtle disdain. And you're the matriarch. Everly replied with a smile too sweet to be genuine. Riker speaks of you often. Does he? Halston's gaze flicked to her son. Interesting, since he's barely mentioned you. Dinner was a masterclass in passive aggression, with Halston peppering Everly with questions about her little teaching job and hobby performances. Riker's sister, Bryn, watched with detached amusement, occasionally throwing her brother sympathetic glances. Everly studied at Juilliard. Riker interjected after his mother's 3rd dismissive comment. She was first chair in their orchestra. And yet here you are, teaching scales to children in Seattle. Halston mused, sipping her wine. Remarkable career trajectory. I find meaning in different places than you might, Mrs. Blackwood. Everly replied, her composure unwavering. Not everyone measures success in decimal points. The tension was broken by the arrival of dessert and Halston's pivot to interrogating Riker about his latest business decisions. On the private flight back to Seattle, Everly was unusually quiet. She's always like that, Riker said, taking her hand. It's not personal. It felt personal when she asked if I'd considered more practical career options now that I'm dating you. Everly's voice was soft but firm. Your mother thinks I'm a gold digger with a cello. My mother thinks everyone wants something from us. Riker pulled her closer. She'll come around. I'm not sure I want her to. The conversation shifted when Everly's phone rang. A call from Thaddeus Montgomery, her former professor and mentor. His voice, audible through the speaker, boomed with excitement. They want you, Everly. The Pacific Northwest Symphony needs a cellist for their world tour. 6 months, 12 countries, starting in September. Riker watched emotions play across her face: shock, joy, uncertainty. He knew what this meant to her, the opportunity she'd been working towards since she was 8 years old. Thaddeus, can I call you back? Her eyes met Riker's. Don't you dare turn this down, Riker said after she hung up. This is everything you've worked for. It's 6 months away from you, from what we're building. We'll make it work. He kissed her, trying to ignore the sudden hollowness in his chest. I'll visit. There's this invention called airplanes, very convenient. That night, as Everly slept beside him, Riker stared at the Seattle skyline, calculating distances and time zones. His company was poised for exponential growth, requiring his constant presence. Her career was finally taking flight, pulling her across oceans. The math didn't add up, but he refused to acknowledge it. July brought heat waves and milestones. Cyphertech's first major product launch, Everly's final recital before tour preparations began. They moved in a dance of shared success and separate trajectories, both pretending the September deadline wasn't looming. We should celebrate, Riker suggested after coming home to find Everly practicing in their living room, her focus intense. The tour, the launch, all of it. She lowered her bow, a strange expression crossing her face. I need to talk to you about something. Sounds serious. He sat beside her on the bench. Did Thaddeus change the tour schedule? No. She took a deep breath. I've been feeling off lately. Tired, nauseous. I thought it was stress, but she met his eyes. I'm pregnant, Riker. The word hung between them, altering everything. Riker felt the floor tilt beneath him, his carefully constructed plans suddenly obsolete. You're sure? He managed. 3 tests and a doctor's visit, sure. She watched him carefully. It's about 8 weeks along. Riker's mind raced, calculating backward. The weekend in Vancouver, when it rained for 3 days straight. A small smile played at her lips. Apparently, we found ways to stay entertained. The tour would have to wait. She set her cello aside. There will be other tours. What about your career? Everything you've worked for? This changes things, yes. She placed a hand on her still flat stomach. But it doesn't end anything. It just redirects. Riker stood abruptly, moving to the window. Behind him, Everly fell silent, waiting. Outside, Seattle continued its relentless pace, unconcerned with their personal earthquake. Say something, she finally whispered. I need time to process this. His voice sounded distant even to his own ears. That night, as Everly slept, Riker made a call he'd been avoiding for months, to his mother. Halston's voice, crisp and businesslike despite the late hour, offered neither comfort nor clarity, only cold calculation. You're at a critical juncture, Riker. A child now would derail everything you've built. I'm not asking for your opinion, Mother. Then why call me at midnight? The question hung in the air, uncomfortably accurate. You know what needs to be done. The question is whether you have the spine to do it. Riker hung up, but his mother's words had already taken root, feeding the fear he'd been trying to ignore since Everly's announcement. By morning, he'd made his decision, one that would haunt them both for years to come. The Cyphertech office hummed with tension as Riker stared at the latest valuation report. $50 million. 2 years ago, he'd been coding in a cramped apartment, living on ramen and ambition. Now investors were lining up, and tech magazines were calling him the next big thing. His phone buzzed with Everly's text. Doctor says everything looks perfect. Dinner tonight to celebrate. He didn't respond, sliding the phone face down as his mother walked into his office unannounced. You look terrible, Halston Blackwood observed, impeccable in Chanel despite the early hour. I assume you haven't told her yet. There's nothing to tell. Riker closed the report. I'm handling it. By ignoring it, Halston's perfectly arched eyebrow conveyed volumes of disappointment. The Shanghai investors are flying in next week. They're conservative, traditional. They won't look kindly on a CEO with a messy personal life. A baby is hardly a messy personal life, Riker snapped, the sleepless nights fraying his composure. It is when you're not married, when the mother is a struggling musician, and when you're about to take your company public. Halston inspected a framed award on his shelf. Shanghai wants stability, commitment to the company, not distractions. Everly isn't a distraction. No. His mother turned, her voice softening into something more dangerous. Then why haven't you told your team about the baby? Why haven't you mentioned it to the board? The question hit its mark. Riker had been compartmentalizing, keeping Everly and their news separate from his professional world. I thought so. Halston moved toward the door, then paused. Did I ever tell you about your father's brother? Your Uncle Reed. You said he died before I was born. He's very much alive. Your father's dirty little secret. A bastard son from an affair. She examined her manicure. When Reed's mother got pregnant, she thought she'd hit the jackpot. Instead, your grandfather cut your father off completely. Nearly destroyed the family business. Riker frowned. What are you talking about? Your father had to choose, the family legacy or his half-brother. Halston's smile was razor-thin. He chose correctly. Reed and his mother got a generous settlement and disappeared. Your father went on to rebuild what his moment of weakness almost destroyed. Why are you telling me this now? Because history has an unfortunate way of repeating itself. She placed a slim folder on his desk. The Shanghai deal requires your full attention for the next 3 years. No paternity leave, no family distractions. It's explicitly stated in Clause 17. Riker opened the folder, scanning the document with growing unease. You're asking me to choose between my company and my child. I'm reminding you that choices have consequences. Your father understood that. Eventually, she paused at the door. The Blackwood men have a weakness for auburn hair and bad decisions. Fortunately, both can be addressed with sufficient motivation. After she left, Riker sat motionless, the folder open before him. $50 million. A baby he hadn't planned for. A girlfriend he loved but hadn't factored into his 10-year strategy. That evening, he arrived home late to find Everly setting the table, candles lit, her hair swept up to reveal the graceful curve of her neck. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine a different life. One where this scene repeated itself through the years, where their child grew up in a home filled with music and laughter. The fantasy dissolved as his phone buzzed with an email from Shanghai. Bad day? Everly asked, noticing his expression. Complicated. He accepted the glass of water she offered, noting she'd switched from wine to sparkling water herself. Another reminder of the changes coming. I spoke with the symphony today, she said, serving the pasta she'd made. They're disappointed, of course, but Thaddeus says they'll hold my position for next season. He's been incredibly supportive. Thaddeus. Riker couldn't keep the edge from his voice. Your mentor seems very invested in your life decisions. Everly set down her fork. He's been supporting my career since I was 17. Of course he's invested. I'm sure he is. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Riker pushed his plate away. I can't do this tonight. Can't do what? Have dinner? Talk about our future. She gestured to her stomach. This isn't going away, Riker. Maybe it should. The words escaped before he could stop them. Everly stilled, her face draining of color. What did you just say? I've built something incredible from nothing. We're about to go global. I can't just put everything on hold because of one night without protection. His voice sounded mechanical, rehearsed, as if his mother was speaking through him. One night. Everly stood, knocking over her water glass. This is our child, Riker. Not a scheduling conflict. It's the wrong time. For both of us. He couldn't meet her eyes. Your career, my company. A baby now would derail everything. So what are you saying? That I should get an abortion? That we should give our child up? Her voice rose, hands shaking. Or is this your way of telling me you're leaving? I'm saying we need to be realistic. Riker felt something breaking inside him, but pushed forward. You're 3 months pregnant. You have options. Options. She spoke the word like a curse. And what about us? Is that an option too? The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, Riker spoke the words his mother had practically scripted for him. I think we moved too fast. Got caught up in the moment. We want different things. That's a lie. Everly's voice was steady despite the tears streaming down her face. You're scared, and instead of facing it, you're running. This isn't about fear. It's about priorities. He reached for his jacket. I'll stay at a hotel tonight. Give you time to think. Your mother got to you, didn't she? Everly stepped into his path. What did she say? That I'm not good enough? That a baby would ruin your precious image? Leave my mother out of this. Why? She's clearly in the middle of it. Everly's composure cracked. Tell me the truth, Riker. What happened between yesterday and today? Shanghai happened. $50 million happened. He ran a hand through his hair. There are clauses in the contract. No major life changes, no paternity leave, nothing that could destabilize the company for 3 years. And you agreed to this? To contractually postpone our family. I haven't signed yet. But you will. It wasn't a question. Riker's silence was answer enough. Get out. Everly's voice dropped to a whisper. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. Everly, no. She stepped back. I won't be your dirty little secret, and neither will our child. Make your choice, Riker, but understand what you're giving up. For one suspended moment, he almost reached for her. Almost told her about his uncle, about his father's choice, about the fear gnawing at his insides that he was incapable of being better than the Blackwood men before him. Instead, he reached into his pocket and placed a check on the counter. This should help until you figure things out. The hurt that flashed across her face was quickly replaced by cold fury. You think you can buy your way out of this? I'm trying to be responsible. No, you're being a coward. She tore the check in half. I don't want your money. Be reasonable, Everly. You're pregnant, alone. I'm alone because you're choosing to leave. She pointed to the door. Get out. Now. Later, he wouldn't remember walking to his car or driving to the hotel. He wouldn't remember calling his mother or emailing the Shanghai investors to confirm the meeting. He would only remember Everly's face and the sickening knowledge that he was becoming exactly the man his mother had raised him to be. 3 days later, after ignored calls and unanswered texts, Riker returned to the apartment with his assistant to collect his things. Everly was gone. Her clothes, her cello, all traces of her vanished. On the kitchen counter lay an envelope containing the torn pieces of his check, taped back together, and a note in her elegant handwriting. You were right about one thing. It was a mistake. It was the last he heard from her, until 2 years later, when fate and a coastal arts festival would bring their carefully constructed worlds crashing down again. Daddy, look. Aurora tugged on Riker's sleeve, pointing at a carousel horse with chipped gold paint. Riker jolted, coffee spilling onto his custom suit. The little girl staring up at him with copper pigtails giggled, her eyes, so familiar, crinkling at the corners. Sorry, mister, she said, already being pulled away by a harried woman with a stroller. You look like my daddy in the picture. He stood frozen in the bustling Seattle airport terminal, phantom fingers still gripping his sleeve. 2 years of therapy hadn't cured him of these moments. Children with auburn hair triggering the what-ifs that haunted his dreams. Mr. Blackwood? His assistant appeared with fresh napkins. Your jet is ready. The private terminal offered blessed isolation as Riker boarded his Gulfstream. The Forbes magazine, with his face on the cover mocking him from the side table. America's youngest tech billionaire shares his secrets to success, the headline proclaimed. Secret number 1. Sacrifice everything that matters. The board meeting is scheduled for Thursday, and the charity gala is Friday evening. His assistant recited, sliding a folder across the table. Also, your mother called. Again. Tell her I'm underwater until next month. Riker turned to the window as the plane climbed above Seattle, the city where he'd gained everything and lost what mattered most. Cyphertech had exploded after the Shanghai deal, expanding into markets across Asia and Europe. The IPO last year had made Riker a billionaire at 33, his face a fixture on business magazines and tech conferences. On paper, he had everything. In reality, he lived in a penthouse filled with modern art he didn't understand, dated models who asked nothing of him beyond appearances at industry events, and woke from recurring nightmares about a child with copper hair calling for a father who never came. One more thing, his assistant said hesitantly. The Coastal Arts Foundation requested your presence at their annual festival in Savannah next week. Your mother is on their board now. Of course she is. Riker sighed. Tell them I'm. She specifically mentioned you promised to attend. His assistant looked uncomfortable. She said to remind you about Reed. The name hit like a physical blow. Since his mother's revelation about his father's illegitimate half-brother, she'd weaponized Reed's existence whenever Riker resisted her control. Fine. One day, not the whole weekend. He turned back to the window, adding another obligation to his hollow existence. 2,000 miles away, in a sunlit cottage on Nantucket, Everly Sinclair coaxed a reluctant cello student through scales. Try again, Madison. Remember what we talked about. Your bow is just an extension of your arm. The girl sighed dramatically. Can't we play something fun? Like Taylor Swift. Master the basics first. Everly demonstrated the correct form. Bach will still be here when you finish your scales. As Madison grudgingly returned to practice, Everly checked her watch. 20 minutes until Aurora's playdate ended. Just enough time to review the festival program one last time. The Savannah Coastal Arts Festival had been Thaddeus's idea, a chance to premiere her composition suite while introducing Aurora to the vibrant arts community. After 2 years of turning down performance opportunities that required travel, Everly had finally relented, partly because Nantucket was suffocating her with memories, and partly because Aurora's endless questions about her father were becoming harder to deflect. "Mom!" The front door banged open as her daughter burst in, cheeks flushed from playing in the spring sunshine. "Mrs. Peterson has puppies." Indoor voice, "Sweetheart." Everly smiled, dismissing Madison with a reminder about tomorrow's lesson. "And I hope you thanked Mrs. Peterson for the playdate." "I did." Aurora climbed onto the piano bench, her small fingers picking out a simple melody Everly had taught her. "Can we get a puppy? Please. Maybe when we get back from our trip." Everly began gathering sheet music from the stand. "Did you have fun with Zach?" "He has a daddy," Aurora said matter-of-factly, still playing the same 5 notes. "His daddy takes him fishing and builds him tree houses." The familiar ache spread through Everly's chest. "Not everyone has the same family, sweetie. Some kids have 2 parents, some have 1, some have grandparents or aunts or uncles. Why don't I have a daddy?" Aurora abandoned the piano to follow Everly into the kitchen. "Is he dead like Grandma and Grandpa?" Everly set down the water glass she'd been filling, choosing her words carefully. "No, he's not dead. He just couldn't be a father when you were born." "Why not?" The innocent question had no innocent answer. How did you tell a 2-year-old that her father had chosen money over family? That he'd walked away before even knowing her? Sometimes grown-ups make choices that are very hard to understand. Everly knelt to her daughter's level. "But I want you to know that you are loved, so very much, and that nothing about your father's absence is your fault." Aurora considered this with a seriousness beyond her years, her eyes, Riker's eyes, searching Everly's face. "Does he know about me?" "Yes," Everly whispered, the truth easier than the complications of her unanswered letters, returned packages, and blocked phone numbers. "Then why doesn't he want to meet me?" The question hung in the air, interrupted by the doorbell. Everly silently thanked whatever deity had arranged the timing as she rose to answer it, finding Thaddeus Montgomery on her porch, arms laden with groceries. "I come bearing provisions," he announced, bending to receive Aurora's enthusiastic hug. "And a certain stuffed otter that a certain young lady left at my house yesterday. Oliver." Aurora grabbed the well-worn toy, racing off to reunite it with her other animals. Thaddeus set the groceries on the counter, his presence filling the small kitchen with warmth. At 62, he retained the commanding presence that had intimidated Everly as a student at Juilliard, though now tempered with grandfatherly affection for Aurora. "You look tired," he observed, beginning to unpack the bags. "Still not sleeping?" "Aurora's having nightmares again." Everly didn't add that she was too, memories of Seattle surfacing as their departure for Savannah approached. "And finalizing the composition suite is taking longer than expected. The festival committee is thrilled you're premiering it with us." He pulled out a bottle of wine. "They're also excited about your master class. We've had record registration." Everly managed a smile. "I still can't believe you talked me into this. 2 years hiding on this island is enough, my dear." Thaddeus began assembling ingredients for dinner with practiced ease. He'd slipped into this routine after showing up unannounced 6 months into her pregnancy, offering support without judgment. "You're too talented to waste away teaching hot cross buns to reluctant children." "I like teaching." Everly filled a pot with water. "It's stable, predictable. It's safe," Thaddeus corrected gently. "And you've never played it safe before." Before Aurora, before Riker, he meant. Before everything shattered. The festival program came today. She changed the subject, nodding toward an envelope on the table. "Full schedule of events and participating artists." Thaddeus picked it up, scanning the contents. His sudden stillness alerted Everly that something was wrong. "What is it?" "Nothing." He set the program down too quickly, just surprised by some last-minute additions. Aurora bounced back into the kitchen. Oliver the otter clutched to her chest. "Can we have mac and cheese?" "We're having pasta primavera," Everly replied, still watching Thaddeus. "Why don't you set the table?" After Aurora skipped off with forks and napkins, Everly snatched up the program. "What aren't you telling me?" Everly, her blood froze as she found it. The donor recognition page, with Cipher Technologies listed as a platinum sponsor. And there, under special guest speakers, Riker Blackwood's name, alongside a photo that hadn't changed in 2 years, still devastatingly handsome, still the face that haunted her dreams. You knew. Her voice was barely audible. You knew he'd be there. I found out yesterday. Thaddeus took the program from her trembling hands. His mother joined the board recently. I was going to tell you tonight. I can't go. Panic rose in her throat. Not with Aurora. Not with him there. Everly, listen to me. Thaddeus gripped her shoulders. It's one weekend. He's speaking at the business leadership panel on Friday. You're performing Sunday. You probably won't even cross paths. You don't understand, she whispered. Aurora looks exactly like him. Understanding dawned on Thaddeus's face. He doesn't know. I tried telling him. For months after he left, the familiar bitterness rose. Every letter returned. Every call blocked. His mother made sure he never found out. Then maybe it's time he did. Everly looked through the doorway to where Aurora was carefully arranging napkins, humming the same melody she'd been playing earlier. She's already asking questions. What if she sees him? What if he sees her and doesn't care? I can't risk breaking her heart. What if he regrets his choice? Thaddeus asked softly. People change, Everly. Not Riker Blackwood. She turned back to the stove, blinking away tears. His company is his only true love. Always was, always will be. But later that night, as Aurora slept with Oliver clutched to her chest, Everly pulled out the worn photo she kept hidden in her nightstand. Riker smiling at her across a picnic blanket in Discovery Park, sunlight catching his dark hair, his eyes crinkled with laughter. The man she'd loved. The man who'd left. In 1 week, they'd be in the same city again. The thought terrified her, not because she feared seeing him, but because despite everything, a tiny, traitorous part of her still hoped he'd changed. Savannah in spring was postcard perfect, azaleas blooming beneath moss-draped oaks, historic squares filled with tourists snapping photos of antebellum architecture. Riker noticed none of it as his driver navigated cobblestone streets toward the Riverfront Hotel. Your mother called again, sir. His new assistant, Mira, reported from the back seat. She expects you at the patrons' dinner tonight. Tell her I have calls with Tokyo until midnight. Riker didn't look up from his laptop, where quarterly projections glowed in accusatory red. Cipher Tech's newest product launch was undergoing technical difficulties that required his attention, not some arts festival fundraiser. She said, and I quote, "If he's not there, I'll announce Reed's control of the family trust." Mira looked uncomfortable. I don't know what that means, but she seemed certain it would motivate you. Riker snapped his laptop shut. What time is dinner? 7:30 at the old pink house. Black tie. Mira hesitated. There's also the small matter of your speech for tomorrow's panel. The festival coordinator asked for talking points. Tell them I'll speak about tech philanthropy. 5 minutes, no Q&A. Riker turned to the window, watching Savannah's genteel facade slip by. And find me everything on Reed Blackwood. Age, location, occupation, anything. Myra's confused expression reflected in the glass, but she nodded. Yes, sir. The hotel suite offered temporary sanctuary from his mother's machinations. Riker loosened his tie, pouring 2 fingers of scotch as he surveyed the Savannah River through floor-to-ceiling windows. 2 years since Seattle. 2 years of achievement and emptiness, of nightmares he couldn't outrun. His phone chimed with a calendar notification. Patrons' dinner, 90 minutes. Beneath it, Mira had added preliminary information about Reed Blackwood. The terse bullet points painted a stark picture. 43 years old. Professor of Environmental Science at Colorado State. Married, 2 children. Son of Elaine Mercer and Jonathan Blackwood. Unacknowledged half-brother to Riker. Existence, confirmed. Threat level, to be determined. Well played, mother, Riker muttered, draining his glass. 90 minutes later, he entered the private dining room of Savannah's most famous restaurant, immediately spotted by his mother, resplendent in designer black. Cutting it close, darling. Halston air-kissed his cheek, her grip on his arm belying her casual tone. The governor just arrived. I'd like you to meet him. Why am I really here, mother? Riker kept his voice low as she steered him through the crowd. This isn't about the festival. Can't a mother want her successful son by her side? She smiled at approaching patrons, never breaking her society facade. Table assignments are on the easel. You're at my table, naturally. Riker scanned the room out of habit, cataloging exits and familiar faces. His gaze stopped abruptly on a tall, distinguished man with silver hair speaking animatedly to a small group near the bar. Thaddeus Montgomery, his mother supplied, following his eyeline. Conductor of the Pacific Northwest Symphony. Quite respected in classical circles, though his politics are tediously progressive. Riker's chest tightened. Thaddeus Montgomery, Everly's mentor. The man who'd offered her the tour she'd never taken. Is she here? The question escaped before he could stop it. Who, darling? His mother's feigned innocence fooled neither of them. You know exactly who. Riker's jaw clenched. Is that why you dragged me here? Some twisted game. I have no idea what you're talking about. Halston beckoned to a waiter carrying champagne. Though if you mean that little cellist you were infatuated with, I believe she is performing Sunday. Some original composition. She sipped her champagne. Quite the little career she's built since taking that settlement. What settlement? Riker's voice dropped dangerously low. The generous arrangement you provided. Halston's smile never wavered. To handle her situation. I never. Riker stopped as the pieces clicked into place. What did you do? What any mother would do. Protected her son from a gold digger. Halston nodded graciously to passing board members. She took the money and disappeared, just like Reed's mother. Problem solved. The room tilted slightly as 2 years of assumptions crumbled. You intercepted her calls. Among other things. Halston's eyes hardened. It was for your own good. The Shanghai deal made you a billionaire. A child would have derailed everything. A child, Riker repeated, his voice hollow. She kept it. Something flickered across Halston's face. Surprise, quickly masked. You should circulate, darling. The governor is waiting. Riker grabbed her arm as she turned away. Answer me. Remove your hand. His mother's voice could have frozen the savannah air. We are not having this conversation here. Then we'll have it somewhere else. Riker released her, already moving toward the exit. Enjoy your dinner, mother. I'm sure you can explain my absence to the governor. Outside, the humid night air did nothing to cool the rage building inside him. 2 years of silence explained not by Everly's choice, but by his mother's interference. He pulled out his phone, scrolling to his assistant's number. Mira, I need everything on Everly Sinclair. Current residence, occupation, any public records from the past 2 years. Now, sir? It's almost 8, now. Riker's tone brooked no argument. And hire a private investigator. The best in Savannah. I need information tonight. Walking helped clear his head, historic squares giving way to the waterfront as he pieced together a disturbing puzzle. His mother intercepting communication. A settlement he'd never authorized. A child, possibly his child, born without his knowledge. By the time Mira called back, he'd reached a quiet park overlooking the river. Her voice was tentative as she relayed what she'd found. Everly Sinclair, 32. Currently residing in Nantucket, Massachusetts. Teaches private music lessons and serves as composer in residence for the Island Chamber Orchestra. Performed with the Boston Symphony as guest cellist last winter. And, Riker prompted, knowing there had to be more. She has a daughter. Mira paused. Aurora Sinclair, age 2. The confirmation hit like a physical blow. Birth date, January 17, 2023. Riker closed his eyes, doing the quick calculation. Almost exactly 9 months after he'd left Seattle. After he'd abandoned Everly. The investigator is meeting you at your hotel in 30 minutes, Mira continued. He's bringing more detailed information. Thank you. Riker ended the call, staring unseeing at the dark river. The magnitude of what his mother had done, what he had allowed her to do, crashed over him in waves. A child. His child. Growing up without him, possibly believing he'd abandoned them willingly. Which, in the most damning sense, he had. The investigator, a former FBI agent named Collier, arrived at Riker's suite with an unmarked envelope and a professional detachment that suited Riker's mood. Everything I could find on short notice, Collier explained, spreading documents across the coffee table. Ms. Sinclair keeps a low profile, but she's not hiding. Riker scanned bank statements, property records, and performance reviews, looking for evidence of the settlement his mother had mentioned. Nothing indicated unusual deposits or unexplained wealth. Everly taught music lessons in a rented cottage, performed occasionally, and appeared to live modestly. What about communications? Riker asked, reaching the last page. Any record of her trying to contact me? That's where it gets interesting. Collier pulled out another document. There were multiple certified letters sent to you at your Seattle office, all signed for by your executive assistant at the time, Valerie Chun. Valerie worked directly for my mother, Riker said grimly. What else? Phone records show multiple calls to your private number in the months following your separation, all under 2 minutes. Several attempts to your office line as well. All intercepted. Riker rubbed his temples. And the child? Collier hesitated, then pulled a photograph from the envelope. Aurora Sinclair. This is from the Nantucket Children's Choir recital 3 months ago. The photograph showed a small girl with copper curls and a gap-toothed smile, clutching a participation ribbon. Her eyes, hauntingly familiar, stared back at Riker with an expression he saw in the mirror daily. Determination mixed with a hint of skepticism. Jesus Christ, he whispered, unable to look away. She's mine. The resemblance is significant, Collier agreed neutrally. There's more. Miss Sinclair and her daughter arrived in Savannah yesterday. They're staying at the Magnolia Inn with Thaddeus Montgomery, who appears to be a close friend. The daughter is registered for the Children's Art Workshop tomorrow at 10 a.m. in Forsyth Park. Riker stood abruptly, moving to the window. Find Reed Blackwood. I need to talk to him as soon as possible. Your half-brother? Collier's professional mask slipped slightly. That wasn't part of it is now. Riker turned back, decision made. And I want every piece of communication my mother sent or received regarding Everly Sinclair. Every email, every text, every document. That would require access to her personal accounts and devices, Collier warned. Legally questionable. I'll double your fee. Riker's voice was steel. I need to know exactly what she did. After Collier left, Riker sat with the photograph of Aurora, tracing the curve of her cheek with his finger. His daughter. The child he'd been dreaming about for 2 years without knowing she existed. Dawn found him still awake, a plan forming through the haze of exhaustion and shock. His panel appearance wasn't until afternoon. The children's workshop started at 10. If he couldn't face Everly yet, he could at least see his daughter in person. As morning light filtered through the hotel curtains, Riker's phone chimed with a message from Collier. Found something. Coming over now. 20 minutes later, the investigator placed a folder on the table containing printouts of emails, all from Halston Blackwood's private account. These were sent to Everly Sinclair 2 weeks after you left Seattle, Collier explained. They appear to be from you, but were actually sent by your mother using a spoofed account. Riker read in growing horror as he instructed Everly to accept the settlement, sign a non-disclosure agreement, and never contact him again. The coldness of the language, the casual cruelty, all perfect impersonations of the business tone he used with difficult clients. There's more. Collier pulled out bank statements. Your mother transferred $250,000 to Ms. Sinclair with paperwork indicating it was from you, conditional upon her signature on this document. The NDA was comprehensive, preventing Everly from publicly acknowledging any relationship with Riker or claiming he was the father of her child. A paternity clause stated that Riker waived all rights and responsibilities. She never cashed the check, Collier noted. It was returned to your mother's account 2 weeks later. She refused the money. Riker's chest tightened with something between pride and despair, but believed I wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. Given the documentation, it would be a reasonable conclusion, Collier said carefully. The final blow came in the form of a letter, handwritten, tear-stained, addressed to Riker at his Seattle apartment. Somehow, his mother had intercepted this too. I don't want your money, Everly had written. I want you to know your child. If there's any part of the man I loved still in there, please call me. Just once. Just to talk. The letter was dated March 10th, 2023, nearly 2 months after Aurora's birth. I've found Reed Blackwood, Collier said, breaking the heavy silence. He's arriving in Savannah tonight for an environmental conference. Staying at the Westin. Riker nodded, still staring at Everly's handwriting. Schedule a meeting. And find out where Thaddeus Montgomery is right now. Already did. Collier checked his notes. He's conducting a workshop at the Savannah Music Center until noon, which meant Everly might be alone with Aurora at the hotel, or heading to the children's workshop in Forsyth Park. Thank you. Riker stood, decision made. That will be all for now. After Collier left, Riker showered and changed, avoiding his reflection in the mirror. What could he possibly say to Everly after 2 years of silence she believed he'd chosen? How could he explain what his mother had done without seeming to shift blame? And Aurora, his daughter, what did she know about him? Did she ask about her father? Did she hate him already? There was only one way to find out. Grabbing his jacket and the photo of Aurora, Riker headed for Forsyth Park, toward a confrontation 2 years in the making. The children's art workshop bustled with activity as Riker approached, staying partially hidden behind an ancient oak. 20 or so children sat at outdoor tables, painting watercolor butterflies under a teacher's gentle guidance. He spotted Aurora immediately, her copper curls catching the dappled sunlight, her small face screwed up in concentration as she mixed colors. His daughter. The reality of it stopped his breath. "Can I help you?" A volunteer approached, clipboard in hand. "Just watching," Riker managed, gesturing vaguely. "My niece is participating." The lie bought him a few more minutes of observation. Aurora appeared to be explaining something to the boy beside her, gesturing emphatically with her paintbrush. Even from a distance, her confidence was evident, a trait she certainly hadn't inherited from her mother's gentle reserve. "She's quite the little artist," a familiar voice said beside him. Riker turned to find Thaddeus Montgomery, silver hair gleaming in the sunlight, watching him with undisguised hostility. "I thought you had a workshop until noon," Riker said, recovering quickly. "It ended early when I received a text that Riker Blackwood was asking about my whereabouts." Thaddeus's expression remained pleasant for any observers, but his eyes were steel. "What are you doing here?" "I think you know. 2 years too late." Riker faced him fully. "I only found out about Aurora last night." Something flickered across Thaddeus's face, surprise, quickly masked by skepticism. "Everly sent multiple letters. Called repeatedly. My mother intercepted everything." Riker handed over his phone, displaying the emails Collier had found. She forged communications, returned the settlement check Everly sent back, and hid every attempt at contact. Thaddeus read quickly, his expression darkening. "This is unconscionable." "Yes," Riker agreed simply, "and I allowed it by walking away in the first place." A small commotion drew their attention back to the workshop. Aurora had apparently finished her painting and was now spinning in circles, her artwork held high above her head to dry. "She's extraordinary," Riker whispered. "She is." Thaddeus's voice softened. "And she's been asking about you. Not you specifically, but her father. What has Everly told her?" "The truth, as much as a 2-year-old can understand. That her father couldn't be with them when she was born." Thaddeus shot him a pointed look. "She's protected Aurora from the painful details." Riker's throat tightened. "I need to talk to Everly. She'll be here to pick up Aurora at noon." Thaddeus checked his watch. "Which gives us 30 minutes to discuss your intentions." "My intentions?" "Yes." Thaddeus gestured toward a nearby bench. "You've discovered you have a daughter. Congratulations. Now what?" The blunt question caught Riker off guard as they sat. "I want to be part of her life." "And how exactly do you envision that working? Weekend visits? FaceTime calls between board meetings?" Thaddeus's tone was pointed. "Aurora isn't a business acquisition you can integrate into your portfolio." "I'm aware of that," Riker said stiffly. "Are you?" "Because Everly has spent 2 years creating stability for that child. She's sacrificed her career, moved across the country, built a life centered entirely around Aurora's well-being." Thaddeus leaned forward. "And now you want to waltz in because your mother's scheme finally unraveled?" "I'm not asking for your permission," Riker countered. "No, but you'd be wise to consider my perspective." Thaddeus's voice dropped. "I've watched Everly piece herself back together after you shattered her. I've seen her cry when Aurora asks why other children have daddies and she doesn't." The words landed like physical blows. Before Riker could respond, a small voice called out, "Mr. Tad, look at my butterfly." Aurora raced toward them, watercolor paper flapping in her hand. She skidded to a stop when she noticed Riker, suddenly shy. "Hello," she said, half hiding behind Thaddeus's leg. "Hello, Aurora." Riker's voice came out rough. Up close, the resemblance was even more striking, her eyes exactly like his, though set in Everly's delicate features. Aurora tilted her head. "How do you know my name?" Before Riker could formulate a response, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the park, copper hair gleaming in the sunlight. Everly. Her stride faltered when she spotted them, face draining of color. "Mommy," Aurora called, waving her painting. "Look what I made." Everly approached slowly, eyes never leaving Riker's face. Her expression a complex mixture of shock, anger, and something unreadable. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she said automatically, placing a protective hand on Aurora's shoulder. "Why don't you show Ms. Emily your painting while I talk to these gentlemen?" After Aurora skipped back to her teacher, Everly faced them, voice controlled but trembling. "What's happening here?" "A long overdue conversation," Thaddeus said, standing. "I'll take Aurora for ice cream when she's finished. You two should talk privately." When he'd gone, Riker and Everly faced each other across 2 years of silence and pain. "You look well," he said inadequately. "Don't." Her voice broke on the single word. "Don't pretend this is normal." "Everly, I didn't know." "Save it, Riker." She crossed her arms. "Whatever excuse you've prepared, I'm not interested." "It's not an excuse," he said quietly. "It's the truth. My mother intercepted your letters, your calls, everything." Thunder rolled across Savannah as Everly paced the hotel suite, Thaddeus's worried gaze following her movements. "You can't possibly believe him," she said, rain lashing the windows behind her. "That his mother orchestrated this elaborate conspiracy and poor Riker knew nothing?" "I've seen the evidence," Thaddeus replied calmly. "The forged emails, the intercepted letters. Halston Blackwood is formidable. So is her son." Everly stopped pacing. "Even if it's true, even if he didn't know about Aurora until yesterday, it doesn't change the fact that he left me when I told him I was pregnant. He made his choice." Their conversation in the park had been mercifully brief. After Riker's revelation about his mother's interference, a sudden downpour had forced them to seek shelter. Everly had used the opportunity to escape, ignoring his pleas to meet later. She'd picked up Aurora from Thaddeus and retreated to their hotel, mind reeling. "He wants to meet her properly," Thaddeus said. "As her father. It's too soon. She's too young to understand." Everly sank onto the sofa. "What if he disappears again? She'll be devastated. And if he doesn't?" Thaddeus countered. "If he genuinely wants to be part of her life?" Before Everly could respond, the suite door opened, and Aurora bounded in with the hotel nanny who'd been watching her while the adults talked. "Mommy, Miss Sadie let me have 2 cookies." She climbed onto Everly's lap, smelling of rain and chocolate. "Is it time for the concert yet?" "Not yet, sweetheart. The storm has delayed everything." Everly smoothed her daughter's damp curls. "Did you thank Miss Sadie?" After the nanny departed, Aurora noticed the tension in the room. "Are you sad, Mommy?" "No, just thinking." Everly forced a smile. "Why don't you draw a picture for Grandpa Tad while I make a phone call?" As Aurora settled at the coffee table with crayons, Everly stepped onto the covered balcony, pulling up Riker's number he'd insisted on giving her. Her finger hovered over the call button when her phone buzzed with an incoming call from the festival director. "Everly, thank God I reached you. We have a situation." The director's voice was tight with stress. "The storm has flooded parts of downtown. We've evacuated the main venue and relocated tonight's performances to the historic theater on Broughton." "What about tomorrow's showcase?" Everly asked, watching lightning split the darkened sky. "We're assessing damage. Right now, we're focusing on tonight's fundraiser." A pause. Thaddeus was supposed to conduct, but he's stuck at the conference center. "Can you step in?" "Just the opening piece, Debussy's trio." Everly hesitated. The last thing she wanted was to perform tonight, with Riker potentially in the audience, her emotions raw and unsettled. "Please, Everly. We've got donors arriving despite the storm and nothing prepared." "Fine. Just the Debussy." She ended the call, turning to find Thaddeus watching her through the balcony door. "The fundraiser's still on?" he asked as she stepped back inside. "Relocated to the Broughton Theater. They need me to fill in for you." Everly checked her watch. "The nanny can stay with Aurora." "No." Aurora looked up from her drawing. "I want to go too." "Sweetheart, it's not a children's event." "Please, Mommy. I'll be super quiet." Aurora's lower lip trembled. "I want to hear you play." Everly sighed, knowing this battle was lost before it began. "Fine, but you stay with Grandpa Tad the whole time." 40 minutes later, they arrived at the historic theater, rain still pouring outside. The ornate lobby buzzed with festival patrons seeking shelter from the storm, the evening's program hastily revised and printed on cardstock. Backstage, Everly warmed up with the violinist and pianist, the familiar ritual calming her frayed nerves. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see Aurora sitting with Thaddeus in the third row, her copper curls unmistakable even in the dimmed lighting. She scanned the audience habitually, freezing when she spotted Riker entering from the side door, shaking rain from his coat. He took a seat at the back, unaware of her observation. Despite everything, her traitorous heart quickened at the sight of him. The stage manager's countdown pulled her attention back to the performance. As she took her position center stage, the familiar calm of performance descended. For the next 7 minutes, nothing existed except Debussy's haunting harmonies. The trio finished to enthusiastic applause, Everly bowing automatically before exiting stage left. She quickly passed her cello to a stagehand, intending to join Thaddeus and Aurora in the audience for the remainder of the program. That's when she noticed Aurora's seat was empty. "Where's Aurora?" she asked Thaddeus urgently, sliding into the vacant chair. His expression changed to alarm. "She was just here. She said she was going to you backstage. I didn't see her." Panic rose in Everly's throat as she scanned the darkened theater. She must have gotten confused about where to go. They split up to search, Everly checking backstage while Thaddeus circled the lobby. 20 minutes later, they reconvened, both empty-handed and increasingly frantic. "The storm's getting worse," Thaddeus said, glancing toward the lobby where rain lashed against the glass doors. "The streets are starting to flood." She wouldn't go outside. Everly's voice cracked. "She's afraid of thunder." "Miss Sinclair." A security guard approached. "Is your daughter wearing a blue dress with butterflies?" "Yes." Everly grabbed his arm. "You've seen her?" "One of our patrons reported seeing a little girl heading down toward the main stage about 15 minutes ago. Said she looked upset." "Why would she be upset?" Everly exchanged puzzled looks with Thaddeus. "I might know," came a voice behind them. Riker stood there, expression grave. "I saw her watching from the wings during your performance. When I approached, she ran." "You scared her," Everly accused. "No." Thaddeus's voice was quiet. "She overheard us arguing about Riker earlier. She knows he's her father." The implications hit Everly like a physical blow. "We need to find her. Now." As if in answer, the lights flickered once, twice, then plunged the theater into darkness as a deafening crack of thunder shook the building. "Emergency generators should kick in," the security guard said, already moving away with his flashlight. "The stage," Riker said suddenly. If she was watching Everly from there. Without waiting for a response, he headed toward the darkened theater, Everly right behind him. 1 year later, the Lighthouse Bay Festival grounds sparkled with autumn sunshine. Everly adjusted Aurora's small bow tie as the child fidgeted in her miniature tuxedo. "Mommy, I'm nervous," Aurora whispered, clutching her quarter-sized cello. "That's normal." Everly smoothed her daughter's copper curls. "Even Mommy gets nervous before performances." "Does Daddy get nervous too?" Everly glanced toward the small stage where Riker was deep in conversation with the sound technician, his casual confidence belying the 6 months of cello lessons he'd secretly taken to surprise Aurora. "Ask him yourself," she suggested. The past year had been a journey of reconciliation that began in the darkened Savannah Theater. They'd found Aurora curled up inside Everly's empty cello case on the main stage, tear-streaked and frightened by the storm, but determined to practice like her mother. "Are you really my daddy?" she'd asked Riker directly, her small voice echoing in the cavernous space. His honest answer, "Yes, and I'm sorry I've missed so much time with you," had been the first step toward healing. What followed was a careful reconnection. Riker had moved temporarily to Nantucket, renting a cottage near Everly's while establishing regular visits with Aurora. He'd confronted his mother publicly, revealing her manipulation and cutting business ties with her. The scandal had rocked tech circles, but Riker had emerged stronger, restructuring Cyphertech with a renewed purpose. The reunion with his half-brother Reed had been another turning point. Learning how Reed had rebuilt his life after similar maternal interference had given Riker perspective on forgiveness and second chances. Everly had watched cautiously as Riker won Aurora's trust with genuine interest in her world, attending recitals, learning the names of all her stuffed animals, never rushing or pushing for more than Aurora was ready to give. Winning back Everly's trust had been harder. Weekly coffee meetings became co-parenting discussions, which slowly evolved into something deeper. The wall she'd built began crumbling when Riker supported her decision to end her engagement to Thaddeus, recognizing it had been based on security rather than love. "Ready for your debut?" Riker asked, approaching them now. What if I mess up? Aurora looked between her parents. Then we mess up together. Riker knelt to her level. That's what family does. The word family still felt new in Everly's mouth as she took her place on stage beside Riker and Aurora. The small audience of festival attendees had no idea they were witnessing more than a performance. They were seeing the culmination of a journey from heartbreak to healing. As Aurora played her first notes, slightly wobbly but determined, accompanied by Riker's recently acquired cello skills and Everly's expert guidance, Reed watched from the front row, his own children beside him. The simple melody, composed by Everly specifically for Aurora, filled the autumn air. When they finished, Aurora's triumphant smile as the audience applauded was worth every painful step of their journey. Later, as sunset painted the bay in gold, Riker took Everly's hand beneath the lighthouse. "I've been carrying this for months," he said, producing a small velvet box, waiting for the right moment. Inside wasn't a diamond ring as she'd expected, but a delicate gold compass. "So we never lose our way again," he explained, securing it around her neck. The real proposal came from Aurora that evening, her small face serious as she presented her parents with a crayon drawing of the three of them together. "Can we be a forever family now?" she asked. "Like in my picture?" As Everly met Riker's gaze over their daughter's head, the answer came easily, healing the final fracture in her heart. "We already are," she said, reaching for both their hands. Some journeys just take unexpected detours before finding their way home.